It happened during the very fierce governmental anti-terror operation period. So the kidnapping maybe is for, of course, there's no visible organization who claimed the responsibility at the first point, and also there are no requirements from the kidnappers. But only this kind of incident has been exposed to the media after the two Chinese be kidnapped after one very fierce operation in Samaria near Mustang, which is not far from the place where the two Chinese be kidnapped. It shows that there are several points that, on the one hand, that the Pakistan side is already taking actions against various kinds of terrorist groups, and the terrorist groups is also on the run. Now, second, that it is not like claimed by the IS. It is, as a matter of fact, it's the local militants who kidnapping the two Chinese, which named like the Lashkar Changui Alami, which is the local terrorist groups which were banned by the Pakistani government. And also in the past several months, the Pakistan government has undertaken very fierce fightings against those. There may be some for revenge. Or, yeah.
Mr. Khan, from your knowledge, what you're hearing in Pakistan, what are the motivations of the militants who kidnapped these two Chinese nationals, and under what circumstances did they decide to kill them?
You know, to understand the motives of this current sad incident of kidnapping and then murder of the two Chinese citizens, I would say you will have to understand the complete landscape of militancy in Pakistan. What is happening all around, in all other provinces of Pakistan. You know, when you talk about Sindh, the problem of terrorism or militancy is more about crime. It's criminal in nature. And when you talk about the problem of militancy in Balochistan, it is more of the separatist groups that are active in Balochistan. And then we cannot ignore the involvement of the foreign elements, especially from our neighboring countries that are destabilizing the situation. Those countries are not happy with the CPEC project, I would say, and they are sabotaging this this particular project. So this move by the militants is, I would say, is to attain some specific motives, and that motive seems to be to destabilize the ongoing CPEC project, which is currently progressing very effectively and very efficiently in Pakistan.
Mr. Hu, how do you look at... Mr. Hu, let me come to Mr. Hu here. How do you look at what Mr. Khan just said about the CPAC projects, and that some countries are trying to destabilize the region and sabotage the progress of these projects? Do you find it credible?
From this incident, we know that the IS is somewhat behind it, because that the Changui Alami has already been declared that this organization is a partner of the IS. So that is also why the IS released the video. But as a matter of fact, these are local organizations. Of course, I also partly agree with Mr. Han, because there are some forces internationally do not want CPEC to be a successful story. So they will use some resources to disrupt or make disturbance to the CPEC.
Mr. Han, you were about to make a second point. What was your point?
Yeah, that is that the presence of direct IS in Pakistan is not yet confirmed by the authorities or the government or the military establishment of by the military establishment of Pakistan. IS is not directly present. These are the small groups, small militant groups who are trying to get some fame, some gloriousness by using the name of IS. So they are doing their activities and they pledge their allegiance towards IS, and IS is happy to own them. So that to expand its circle, the IS is a threat more than our thoughts. It is a way of life, you can say. They have teachers, they have engineers, they have doctors, they have an economy. So they are there yet in the progress of expanding themselves.
I see your point.
But I would say in Pakistan, their presence directly is not yet on the ground.
I see what your point. Now, one kind of explanation, what we are seeing here on the Chinese media is that the 2 Chinese and kidnapped nationals were brought to Pakistan by an unnamed South Korean national to conduct missionary work. That's according to the Chinese newspaper Global Times. It's also said that the 2 kidnapped were among a group of 13 Chinese nationals who were brought to the town last November to work in a private school named Amaq. Now, the South Korean missionaries have been expelled by many foreign countries, including Iran, Saudi Arabia, and recently by China as well. How could these, Mr. Hu, how could these young people be convinced to work in such a dangerous place without any security guarantees?
But you see, I think that
just a moment. Sorry, I was asking this question to Mr. Hu. Mr. Hu, please.
Also, according to my knowledge, that the youngsters maybe got brainwashed by some teachers from certain kind of missionary groups, and one of the excuse for them to go to Pakistan to do the preachings is that because of the friendship between China and Pakistan. So the missionary so the person in charge of the missionary work, they just, how can I say, convincing the youngsters to go to Pakistan and saying that there was no dangers. As a matter of fact, there is dangers ahead of them, especially in the tribal regions, which the Sharia law is more prevailing than the secular law. So this kind of preaching is really put them lives in danger. But anyway, but this is not the reason for them to be kidnapped, and also not the reason for them to be killed.
Mr. Han, how do you look at this explanation from what you have learned, what you have heard? Is that what really happened as well?
Yeah, I totally agree with Mr. Hu that this should not be the reason to kidnap someone like this and then kill like this. But in this regard, the Chinese embassy here in Pakistan, they have issued some standard protocols of security for Chinese nationals. And let me tell you, the other remaining 11 Chinese nationals, they are taken out of that town from Balochistan, and they are back to the safe place in Islamabad. And the Chinese embassy is coordinating closely with the Pakistani authorities for the security of the Chinese national in Pakistan.
Yeah. Mr. Han, what would be the message for foreign nationals, especially Chinese nationals who are making plans to travel to Balochistan, to Pakistan? What would be the message? How safe it is there and how potentially dangerous it might be?
Let me tell you about the security arrangement that government of Pakistan is doing currently for the security of Chinese nationals. In Punjab, specifically, if I tell you, the Punjab government, they have raised a security force of 6,000 personnel, which they are planning to extend it to 10,000 security personnel, specifically for the CPAC related projects and for the security of only Chinese nationals. In Sindh government, they have around 4,000 Chinese nationals, and they have raised a force of 2,600 security personnel. Same is the case in KPK. They have raised a security force of 3,000 security personnel for the overall foreigner security. Now the Balochistan government is also thinking to raise a special security force to secure all other foreigners, because beside Chinese, they are our brothers, but all other foreigners are also important.
Yes,
their
Mr.
lives
Han,
are also important.
Yes, of course.
So we need to
secure
their lives as well.
Thank you very much for your messages. And Mr. Hu, very briefly, should the Chinese people be concerned about security along the route of the CPAC?
There it is a must to consider the security and risky before you make a trip to Pakistan. But one thing is sure, just according to Hans, that the Pakistan government pay much more attention to the security of the Chinese, especially the engineers, labor forces, workers involved in the CPAC projects. But for the individual Chinese tourists, it should be more alarming before making that kind of trip.